During the Greek classical period, gold coins were not a very common sight. Gold wasn't really common enough around the Mediterranean area to become a part of any monetary standard. Silver was much more abundant and traditionally seen as the metal that played the role of money, so it became the real monetary metal everyone liked. Gold was relegated to royal regalia, religious instruments, luxury goods, and only used as money in emergency situations when a city needed to desperately raise cash. War was generally the reason why gold was made into coins, which actually makes any early Greek gold coins that extra bit cooler because of the whole historical context of the desperate times when they were made. And if there was a city, a people, constantly at war, it was the Syracusans. Maybe a little introduction is needed. Syracuse was a Greek city founded in the 8th century BC at the eastern shores of the island of Sicily. To the west of the island, the powerhouse that was Carthage founded a series of colonies and trade outposts. This made the island the frontier between Greeks and Carthaginians, and since we human beings have a really tough time sharing things, this led to the so-called Sicilian Wars, a series of conflicts that raged on and off between 580 and 265 BC. Imagine that, over 3 centuries of conflict. This resulted on Syracuse being a bit of an oddity numismatically when compared to other Greek city-states, issuing many gold coins throughout its history. And today, I've brought 3 very charming gold coins for us to look at. All 3 of them struck under the authority of Tyrants, who took control of the city during these troubled years. Let's have a look at them. We start with the earliest and tiniest of the 3. A 20 litra piece struck under the tyrant Dionysus I. Terrible man, authoritarian, vindictive, constantly waged wars, not only against the Carthaginians, but also against the Greeks from the south of the Italian peninsula. He even landed on mainland Greece to wreak some havoc there. Of course, he needed to issue lots and lots of coins to pay for all of those campaigns, such as this one, struck around the year 400 BC, relatively early in his reign, likely meant to pay for the massive number of mercenaries he had to hire in order to consolidate his power, which, of course, he took by force. On the obverse, we have the bust of Heracles, looking to the left. He wears the skin of the Nemean lion, which made the demigod invincible to any harm. Dionysus must have felt himself invincible because despite waging so much war, spilling so much blood and having so many enemies, no one managed to assassinate the man. He drank himself to death at the old age of 65. In any case, back to Heracles here. Next to his face, to the left, we have the abbreviation Syra of Syracuse. On the reverse, we have a pretty interesting mix of 2 main visual components. We have on the background a square border, subdivided into 4 different sectors. These look a lot like the incus punches made in early archaic coins, which had fallen out of fashion by the early classical period. On each sector, we have 1 letter of the abbreviation, once again, Syra of Syracuse. And at the center, an absolutely minuscule portrait of a female head, likely Arethusa, the nymph that, according to legend, lived in the springs of fresh water in the city. This coin is tiny, just 12 millimeters in diameter, so this portrait must have been really hard to sculpt. Next, we give a big jump in time to the year 279 BC, to the short reign of Hicetas. Ultimately, Hicetas did not do much in favor of the Greeks over the struggle for Sicily, especially late in his reign when he suffered a major defeat to the Carthaginians and was forced to retreat behind the walls of Syracuse, where he was eventually deposed. During his last couple of years, he issued these small gold hemistators, likely adhering to the Attic weight standard, which was the standard established by Alexander in his empire. Previously, the Syracusans issued coins in their own standard, but by the 3rd century BC, Syracuse was already losing some prominence in the Mediterranean political stage, and adopting a foreign monetary standard was one of the symptoms that your economy and your coins weren't as prestigious as they once were. And the conforming to foreign coinage wasn't restricted to the weight of this coin. Let's have a look at the design. On the obverse, we have Persephone, the goddess of fertility and the harvest, with this wonderful hairstyle and a crown made out of wheat stalks on her head. Wonderful, so many intricacies in this coin. Behind her head, to the right of her neck, we have a control mark, a cornucopia, and to the left, the inscription Syracusion of the Syracusans, indicating the origin of the city. Now, there is something that bugs me about this coin. You see, the coinage of Syracuse is famous amongst numismatists, especially due to the impressive pieces issued in the previous classical period, when the main character to be put on their coins was Arethusa, the water nymph that was the patron goddess of the city. So why the switch to Persephone? Well, the Carthaginians struck for many centuries gold and later electrum staters featuring the goddess Kore, the Phoenician interpretation of Persephone. I'm putting a Syracusan and a Carthaginian examples side by side so we can see the similarities. The style is different. I particularly prefer the Greek coins, but you can see that the similarity is undeniable and must have some underlying reason. The coins had different sizes, different weights, different gold purities, so it's not like these coins were interchangeable, but the switch on the part of the Greeks to an iconography more in line with what the Carthaginians were used to points us towards a presence of more commerce between Greeks and Carthaginians, and maybe to a higher number of Carthaginian coins in Greek markets, which indicates a slow shift to Carthaginian supremacy in matters of commercial power. The reverse, on the other hand, is quintessentially Greek. We have an image of Nike, the goddess of victory and messenger of Zeus, riding this wonderful chariot pulled by 2 horses. Exquisite style on the horses, lots of movements and dynamism in this image. And it's a bit ironic that a coin featuring the image of victory was issued by Syracuse to pay for the troops that were cowering behind their walls after a huge defeat. Under the chariot, we have the inscriptions Epi Iketas, meaning issued under the authority of Iketas, which is a slightly different formula to what Greek kings used to write on their coins. This shows that Iketas did not want to be called a king, although in practical terms he was. He was an autocrat. Some of the very last coins of this type were issued without his name, meaning they were probably struck right at the time Iketas was deposed behind the walls of the city. And for the third coin of the day, let's look at one of the most prolific producers of coins for Syracuse, Hieron II. He had an incredibly long reign, from 275 to 215 BC, so nearly 60 years. And different to Iketas, he knew how to pick his alliances well. First, briefly aligning with the Carthaginians, and later befriending Rome and guaranteeing a small but stable territory and a prosperous time for Syracuse. I would like to make a video exclusively on the coinage of Hieron one day. He issued coins of all metals and in wonderful Hellenistic style. All coins look great, but for today we will focus on this half-stater issued between 270 and 265 BC. As we can see, the design of the hemistator didn't change much. We still have the bust of Persephone, although in this example she switches her hairstyle a little bit. Previously she had it all tied to the back of her head. Now her hair flows down her back. I particularly like this one, makes her look more feminine. What do you think? On the reverse, we once again have the chariot type, although this time it's going in the opposite direction, from right to left. And instead of being driven by Nike, now we have a normal human holding the leash. This reverse looks a lot like the staters issued by Philip II of Macedon and in smaller numbers by Alexander the Great. I would even dare say it's a bit of a copy, of course, because being issued by Alexander and Philip, it became such a well-recognized, well-respected type of coin. The original Philip staters were issued in the 340s BC, so nearly 100 years before this coin was made. Yet, there it is, being copied nearly a century later, halfway across the Mediterranean. Under the design, we have the legends showing, once again, the issuing monarch, Hieronos, Hieron. This is one of the last gold issues by Syracuse. After Hieron died, the following leaders of the city couldn't manage to keep good relations with Rome, leading to its eventual annexation in 212 and the end of its precious metal issues. I just can't stop going back to the coins of Syracuse. They're just too pretty, too refined in their style, even down to the small bronze coins. Do you have a Syracuse coin? Or maybe one of the Carthaginians in Sicily? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.